Hi, everybody. Welcome to Saturday Live at the Backyard Bird Center. Yeah, somebody said, Mark, you've never done a program on Cardinals. So thought, hey, yeah, so that's a good topic for today. And how could I? Because America's favorite songbird, easily. Like I said, every year there's a magazine, somebody does an article about, or does a poll, what's your favorite birds? Well, Northern Cardinals are always right up there at the top of the list. And they are a wide-ranging, very common in urban area songbird, except for those people. Again, I know I'm YouTube out there, YouTubers, a lot of, even on Facebook, some people out on the West Coast, up in the northwestern part of the United States may not have cardinals, but pretty much in the eastern 2/3 or 3/4 of the country, cardinals are pretty common. And they are loved by a lot of people. They're probably one of the best known birds in the world, just because they're on everything. They're on garden flags, they're on coffee mugs, they're on T-shirts, they're on every public. People worldwide know cardinals just because they're so photogenic, if you will, or they're charismatic, and they're all over on postcards and things like that. So, but cardinals, they are great birds, and they're a member of a family of birds that includes, believe it or not, things like our tanagers. The summer tanager is a member of the cardinal family. Scarlet tanager, that was the summer. The Dickcissel is a member of the cardinal family. And the Indigo bunting is a member of that same family. So it's not just the cardinals in that group. But the grosbeaks, which a cardinal is, a grosbeak, obviously this bird has a very large beak, and things like rose-breasted grosbeaks, and if you're out west, the black-headed grosbeaks, or even, the even grosbeaks are a different group, but the blue grosbeaks to the south. So yeah, phylogenetics and bird families can be a little bit confusing, but generally, if the birds look that much alike, they have the same features like the big bill and all, they're probably in the same family. So another name for this bird could have been a red grosbeak. I mean, that is very common. It would be the two most common things that join it together. But we know that the cardinal was named after the rank in the Catholic Church, where red is the color associated with the cardinal rank in the Catholic Church, and that's when this bird was named. Oh, they have that big hat and the crest on these birds, so that's where the name comes from, and they are very widespread. Now, lots of interesting facts about cardinals, and of course, one of them is they are the definition of sexual dimorphism. And I've done whole videos on sexual dimorphism, which is being able to tell a male from a female by just looking at it. And the males with that bright red, and the black around the face, big orange bill of theirs. Well, the female, shape-wise and everything physically, is very much the same as the male, and her colors are a muted brown with red tinging. And why is that? Of course, we know that's mainly because she has to sit on the nest. She has to be camouflaged. If you're bright red sitting on a nest, you draw attention to your young and your eggs, and that's not a good thing. So she's much more camouflaged. But the term is sexual dimorphism, being able to tell a male from a female. Chickadees you can't tell apart. Blue jays you can't tell apart. But cardinals are a prime example of that. So, and what about their diet? Their cardinals are really about 90% seed diet. They do feed their young insects like all birds do. Most birds, you can't always say always, but they do eat some insects that time of the year. And in the fall, this time of year, they are eating fruit. They'll eat a lot of the berries that are available to them in the fall whenever nature's bounty is. And that's one of the reasons why they're very slow at your bird feeders right now. And that is because it is that time of year when berries are become available to them. So they will eat the fruit, but really about 90% of their diet is seed. Sunflower seed, safflower seed are their favorite. Striped sunflower seed. They'll eat some peanuts. That's why the bulk of like our boardwalk blend here and our best-selling bird seeds really caters to cardinals, because when people come in and they're just getting started in bird feeding, or even if they are I've been feeding for a long time, and the bird they always mention that they want to attract to their yard, they want to come to their bird feeders, are cardinals. And so we, most of our a lot of our mixes are definitely catered toward cardinals and their allies. Those birds that we mentioned earlier, especially like the indigo buntings and the rose-breasted grosbeaks, and those birds are all very, very attractive at your bird feeders, and people love them. So a lot of our seed mixes will help you attract those birds to your yard, which is a big thing. And nothing brightens up a cold winter snowy day than our cardinal. This picture taken in the snowstorm, and they really pop and we get this question every year in the winter: are the cardinals brighter this year than ever? And it isn't. It's just that, especially against that gray, dreary winter landscape, they just pop. I mean, they just look more red than normal. Now they may be a little more red whenever they've molted and they're in fresh plumage, but for the most part, they're always red. The males are always red. They're always very vivid. Now they may look huskier because they fluff out the feathers to keep warm, and they will stand erect when they're advertising, and that crown, the crest right up in the air. So we're going to start getting those calls, and all summer we've only had a couple of cardinals coming to our feeders, and that's because of territoriality. They are very territorial. Those of you who have ever had them banging into your window and seeing their reflection know that. But in the winter months, they become less territorial, and they'll feed together. And so we call them the 4 o'clock birds, because in the afternoon, late afternoon, is when those cardinals will come in and in large numbers and feed up real heavily to survive the cold winter nights. And so you can look out like at 4 in the afternoon when the shadows are long and see the ground covered in cardinals, males and females, are on your feeders. They are natural ground feeders, but they like really flat surfaces. When I mentioned in my video I did recently on my favorite hopper feeder, I talked about the importance of having a big flat surface for them to land on, because that's what they like to emulate. They're eating in the wild on the ground, and they like a good flat surface to feed off of. So open trays and hopper feeders with a really good platform on them are really favored for them. But you can have lots of cardinals feeding at the same time in the winter months. Once the ground gets covered in snow, especially, they're more dependent on that seed, like a lot of birds, and so that's a great time to draw them in. Now, one of the things that I brought up was the map of, they're the state bird of 7 different states. And this is the cluster right here. That's where I'm from. I'm from right down here. And so these 7 states here, the Northern Cardinal is the state bird of those states. And number one, by one, there's 6. The 6 states have the meadowlark, and 7 states have the cardinal. So it is a state bird, and so you can tell where the commonality is. Now, one of the things that's been going on with cardinals over the last several years, of course, with climate change, is they're able to survive further north than they used to. So they have range expansion going on. I remember years ago, I was up in Duluth, Minnesota, right there, and there was a cardinal on the rare bird hotline when I was up there, because that was further north than they normally document that bird, but it is like I said, with climate change and warmer temperatures, these birds are nesting further north than they used to, and even further west than they used to. So this range, but you can tell the classic range is they're pretty much a southern bird, and these are the states that recognize it as their state bird. So one call that we get a lot are when we see cardinals like this, and I wrote an article years ago at Martha Lafitte called "Cardinals from Mars." These pictures of these throw molts, if they will, and sometimes this is a mite infection, but sometimes this is just post nesting. They're molting, and they don't need those head feathers. The head feathers are for decoration and for warmth, and then in summer they don't need it for the warmth as much. And so, like I said, it can be a parasite infection, but usually this is just a molt. And this bird will, if you continually come into your feeders, you'll start to see these red feathers start to come back in, and then he'll be right back to normal after a few weeks of molting. So, we do see those, and that generates a lot of questions as well. So we love our cardinals. You love your cardinals, obviously. We get tons of questions about them. They are easily attracted. One of the things cool about their nesting, I do have a picture of a nest, I'm going to throw that in there, is that both the male and female do attend the nest and feed the babies. And the question that always gets asked about birds is, we heard that they'll nest together forever, and their pair bonds are permanent. That is not true in a lot of birds. With cardinals, yes, the same pair may nest from in subsequent seasons, but according to Cornell, divorces are common in the cardinal world. Now we know from genetic studies that when we tested the babies and all the babies in that nest, we find out that several of these babies will have different parents. There'll be different fathers to the different young there, and so there's a lot of cheating in the bird world. So it may kind of be a romantic story that the birds nest together forever and they mourn the loss of it. That's typically not true. They in the bird world, we have what's called hidden ovulation. So this male doesn't know if that female's fertile, and this female doesn't know if that male is fertile. So it's not good survival technique to stick with one mate, and when that's the case. And so they do allow visitors to come in just to ensure that some of their eggs will hatch. So, but they have usually 2 broods a year, especially in this area, and we've seen quite late nests in this area. And how do we know that they nested very late? Well, you'll see one of these guys on your nest, on your feeder, very late in the season. And this is a baby bird that the fledgling that you can tell it looks a lot like the female, but also a lot of red feathers coming in. So this is probably a young male. But look at the bill. The bill is transitioning from all black when it was first hatched to as it's getting into teenage years. We like to call this stage right now, but it's getting some of that orange in there. But this bird just hatched recently, so we've seen these even in October some years on bird feeders. So we know that they will nest late in the season. I think I wouldn't be surprised if in this area there might even be 3 nestings a season. So, but typically it's 1 to 2. So the cardinals, America's favorite songbird. A lot of yous favorite songbirds, so it's a great idea for a program. If you've got any other birds you'd like to see me to do a program on and focus on, that'd be great. If you have any questions, send them in. We love to answer those. Come by. Until then, let's talk birds.